Yo, and what is up, gang? Thank you for checking out Sledgehammer TV tonight. My God, what an embarrassingly low point we have hit with Monday Night Raw. If you, as a wrestling fan, sat through this 3 hour garbage comedy fest and are embarrassed of being a wrestling fan, you are certainly not alone. I am with you on that. This is probably the worst episode of Monday Night Raw of this year, maybe one of the worst of the last 5 years, which is definitely saying something. This includes Legends Night and everything else in between. We were in such terrible territory tonight, and it didn't feel good at all. We are going to go over all of it right here and right now. My name is Nick Nightmare. You are watching the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show's Monday Night Raw review and reaction show. Let's do it.
The Sledgehammer Wrestling Show.
Man, how far the mighty has fallen. You know, before we get started into tonight's review of this ridiculous show, do you guys realize that 34 years ago today, I was an 8-year-old little Nick Nightmare swinging his little baby sledgehammer around, and I was watching WrestleMania 3. Hogan and Andre, Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat, one of the cornerstones of the building blocks of the WWE. The show that probably really put the WWE on a map as a sports entertainment / wrestling powerhouse. And here we are, 34 years later, ingesting garbage produced by the very same people that were producing this show back in that day. If there was ever an indication that you guys needed that the regime of Bruce and Vince and the rest of his clowns, Kevin Dunn and the whole crew needed to go tonight, you need to look no further than this episode. 2 weeks away from WrestleMania, and it does not feel like WrestleMania season. Just because you put the WrestleMania logo on the pay-per-view doesn't mean it's going to feel like WrestleMania, and it certainly doesn't at all. We have been put through a show tonight where every single segment seemingly was put in play or was produced to make you feel sick to your stomach and progressively get worse from the opening segment to the very last. There were so many things wrong with tonight's episode, starting off right at the beginning with the implosion of the Hurt Business. Totally unnecessary. This group was one of my favorite things on Raw, if there was a favorite thing on Raw. I mean, they didn't do anything that great with them as a faction, but they were definitely miles better than Retribution or anything else that they've tried to put together in the last couple of years. And they didn't even make it to WrestleMania. They didn't even make it to WrestleMania as a group. They had so much story left to tell there, and they did away with all of this to give us Baron Corbin? What? They got rid of Lashley's 2 trusted hired hands, his 2 stablemates, and then had Bobby Lashley lay down an offer. He put out a bounty on Drew McIntyre, challenging the entire locker room, saying whoever takes out Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley will replace them at WrestleMania, and they can get their title shot instead of Drew McIntyre. Seems like something that might actually put on some decent television if you think about the story. It has potential there, even though it's ridiculous for Bobby Lashley to be doing so. He went in from one show saying he don't need anybody's help, he don't need anything, he's the man, he's the almighty champion, to next week putting out a bounty to take out Drew McIntyre, as if he wouldn't be able to do so himself. And then they gave us this 3-hour-long journey to see what was going to happen if anybody was going to step up and take out Drew McIntyre. And the one thing that they did, not a good thing, don't expect a good thing, because it's all shit on tonight's episode. Everything. There's not one redeeming factor on this show. But to make this angle even worse, they showed Drew McIntyre sitting in the back in his kilt, just sitting there. And he's all frustrated that nobody's coming to take him out. He's pissed off that nobody wants to fight him. Which is kind of stupid. He should be glad that nobody's trying to take him out. He needs to stay focused on Bobby Lashley. WrestleMania is right around the corner. Why does he need to be derailed by some clowns trying to get his title shot? So he should be relieved. He should be happy about this. But no, he's a fighter, right? He's the babyface fighting guy. And I need to fight to prove that I'm a man. Or whatever the fucking reason was, he felt it necessary to go into the locker room and berate everybody. And literally stood there and told every clown in the locker room what we're all thinking on a weekly basis. He went to guys like Dr. Dimples, Humberto Carrillo, and was like, hey, Dr. Dimples, I've been waiting for you to step up. Why don't you step up and fight me? And then in the funniest part of this whole thing, he approached Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman's sitting in the locker room. He's putting his shit in his duffel bag. And Drew confronts him. He's like, Braun, you should be a 5-time champion already. Why aren't you? Come on, fight me. Take me out, and you can have my shot at WrestleMania. And Braun Strowman proves Shane McMahon right. I don't like to say those words because Shane McMahon, the human sweat machine, dropped his buckets of sweat all over Monday Night Raw tonight and made it infinitely worse. But Braun Strowman telling Drew McIntyre that, well, no, I have a fight with Shane McMahon. After I take care of Shane McMahon, then if you're champion, then I'll come looking for you. What kind of a goofball thing is that to say? Why don't you want a shot at the championship? Beating up Shane McMahon is more important than being the WWE champion? Drew McIntyre, the #1 contender, is giving you the open opportunity to take him out, and you don't jump on that? Everybody else in the locker room, you don't jump on that? And where was anybody of note? Sheamus wasn't back there. Nobody that mattered was back there. It was the entire catering all-star crew. And then Matt Riddle shows up. He's like, Thanksgiving dinner when I fought Sheamus tonight. I can't fight again. What? Who is writing this trash? Whoever it is, even the talent don't think what they're writing is that important. They don't think it's important enough to remember because guys like Matt Riddle are pulling promos, unnecessary promos, by the way. We had more than enough of Matt Riddle on the night that by the third time we seen him, he's trying to cut a promo with Asuka. This guy forgets his lines and walks off. He's asking Asuka, I have my scooter back. It works. Do you think they'd like scooters in Japan, Asuka? Who I have no idea what you're going to respond to me and say because you don't speak in English on the guy. And then he says the same thing again. Do you think they would like scooters in Japan? And then he's just like, I'm sorry, I forgot what I was saying, and walked away. Asuka looked like a deer in headlights. She didn't know what to do, and she just walked off to her nightmare segment towards the end of the show. It was like being in a fever dream. I felt like this was not reality. Was I being punked? Did I fall asleep and dream this episode? You guys that watch this show, you got to confirm with me that this actually happened, right? This isn't just me waking up thinking that I seen an episode, and because this is nightmarish. It's the stuff that just sends cringes up and down your spine from start to finish. What a garbage show. Absolutely no effort, totally lazy booking. What do you mean, lazy booking, Mr. Nightmare? Well, it's very simple. Just look at the women's situation. First of all, Rhea Ripley comes to Monday Night Raw last week. She challenges Asuka. Asuka just accepts. This girl hasn't touched a Monday Night Raw ring in over a year. She hasn't earned it by any stretch of the imagination. She's just calling out the champ, and the champ accepts. And then tonight, with 2 weeks before WrestleMania, we have the obligatory contract signing, which, as usual, ends up in fisticuffs. Asuka takes a bump that looks like it racked her brain for real. You know, she looked like she took a pretty hard fall there from Rhea Ripley. And they go through all of this just to bring out Nia Jax, Reginald the Flipping Bean, and Shayna Basler. And they're confronting Rhea Ripley. Why are you getting a championship match? Where's our WrestleMania match? Don't you idiots have a match at WrestleMania for the tag team championships? You have nothing to do with the World Championship situations, and the WWE only did this because they are completely devoid of any originality at all. After we just spent weeks watching Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair in the Can They Coexist storyline, they're gonna pull that shit again, because next week on Raw, we have Rhea Ripley being forced to team with the champion, Asuka, to take on Nia Jax and Shayna Basler, as if we didn't just do this. And didn't they do this with Charlotte? Wasn't this the whole thing with Charlotte Flair as well? Has Asuka done anything by herself in the last few months? Can she just please be an actual champion? What is with all this tag team shit? Why do Nia Jax and Shayna Basler have to have anything to do with it at all? Shouldn't they be building their own match that has nothing to do with these two already established matches at WrestleMania? What the fuck is going on? This show has got me so heated. I am mad at myself for actually still watching this shit. Well, then why don't you stop watching? Because this is my job. I can't stop watching. I have to complain about it, because then there's nobody here to tell you guys what's really going on. And what's really going on is that this company, week after week, is just going more and more downhill with every single show they put in front of us. Talk about desperation. They're throwing shit at the wall like a bunch of uneducated monkeys, hoping something sticks. And the things that do stick, they don't go with that. They go with the piece of shit that dropped on the floor. When they take the big lump of shit and then they throw it at the wall. Boom! There it is. Oh, look, there's an idea. We got a piece of shit on the wall. Let's go with that. No. Let's take the piece that fell. Let's take the piece that fell and went into the garbage, because that's where you find the good stuff, in the trash. Go through the trash, go through the dumpsters of all the old scripts, and let's take all the worst parts of it and make it part of this show. That's how it was in the writer's room for this show. A collection of unintelligent, completely lazy and uncreative people that couldn't come up with a decent idea. You do pay them. They are paid to come up with ideas. They just don't have to be good. I have every reason to believe that they do come up with good ideas. Maybe I'm a little bit too hard on the creative team, because they probably show a bunch of shit to the old man, and then he just throws it all in the trash and does whatever he wants to do anyway. Maybe he's forgetting. He is in his 70s. Maybe he forgets from week to week what he done last week. He don't have time to go back and watch, so he just, oh no, this sounds good. And then somebody, oh sir, didn't we do that last week? Nobody remembers. I didn't remember. Nobody's going to remember. Make your notes. Do what I say. Vince McMahon. And I say things like this not because I'm trying to be funny, not because I'm trying to be mean, not because I'm trying to be like anybody else, but I say these things because they're 100% true. The show was an abomination. There's not an adjective with a negative connotation that you can't apply to this show. Any single one of them apply. Pick your favorite and leave it in the comments section. How do you describe Monday Night Raw? Or if you're in the chat for the premiere, hit me up right now. How would you describe this show in one word without using trash or garbage? Because that's just too easy. I mean, everybody knows that. That's simple. Find something unique, something descriptive, throw it in the comments section. Maybe we'll use it to describe other episodes of Raw in the future, because things are not going well right now, and they aren't going to go any better as we continue on this ridiculous, broken detour road to WrestleMania. Let's burn through this card. I don't even really want to talk about most of this shit. We started talking about it and then we went off because this show's just got my brain going in a million directions. The Hurt Business came out and they broke up. MVP and Bobby Lashley saying that they don't have time on their team for losers. And so the Hurt Business broke up with a little bit of a brawl at the end. And this pissed off Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. Naturally, they said, oh, well, Bobby Lashley wouldn't even be the champion if it wasn't for us right now, which there is a teeny, tiny modicum of truth behind that. And this would end up with them confronting Adam Pearce, telling him to make the match. Shelton Benjamin wants the champ, wants the almighty Bobby Lashley tonight on Raw. Now, initially, I'm thinking, well, maybe this is a setup, right? Maybe they're going to pull some kind of a double switch, make us think the Hurt Business is broken up, only to have them ambush Drew McIntyre at the end of the show. Unfortunately, I was wrong, because I already told you who fucking showed up at the end of the show, and we'll get to that in a few minutes, because that is one of the most out of left field, nonsensical, unnecessary moves I think they've made in years. And I simply don't understand what Constable King Dickhead Baron Corbin was doing on this show. Not at all. But here's a question for you guys. Riddle me this, riddle me that. Who's being booked like a giant asshat? His name is right in the question itself. Matt Riddle, the giant baby man-child. Now, I know I usually say giant baby man when we're talking about Dominic Mysterio, but here we have an actual man who's being booked to have the intelligence of a 3-year-old, or possibly being fed lines from like a show like Phineas and Ferb or something, because he just absolutely childish, makes no sense. He doesn't hear words correctly. He's riding around on a scooter. He wrestles in no shoes. And here's another question. Riddle me this, my good friends. Why the fuck does Matt Riddle have birds flying out of his feet? Alright, the WWE's 3D graphics department is trash as well as everything else. They gave us the giant Roman Reigns statue. They always put all these new, Ultra HD, 4K, 3-dimensional fucking graphics on the screen that are all unnecessary for the most part. But can you tell me what that's supposed to be? Why is he shooting fucking birds from his feet? This is a minor issue, but it's a question that deserves an answer, I think. Where does that even come from? The guy don't wear birds on his stuff. His name's not Matt fucking Bird. He don't smoke birds. He's not riding around on a bird in the back. Why is he shooting birds from his flip-flop loving feet? Let me know if you know in the comments section down below. Oh, riddle me this. Riddle me this. Why is the United States champion losing to Sheamus on a Monday Night Raw? I have the answer for that, because the WWE doesn't know how else to book a championship match anymore. We got 2 weeks before WrestleMania. What do we do with Matt Riddle? I don't know. Let's make him fight Sheamus. How do we do that, Vince? Make him beat him. What? What? How many champions in the last couple of weeks have we seen being pinned? On SmackDown alone, this past Friday, there was 2. Now Matt Riddle's being pinned. The only reason for it, to set up a WrestleMania match with Sheamus. And none of that is enticing to me. There's just no creativity there. Sheamus should have just automatically been given this chance at the United States Championship because of his consistency on Monday Night Raw. He's been in some of the best matches we've seen, and that should give you some sort of clout in the back. You should get some sort of reward for it. Maybe you lost every single match, but you were impressive enough that maybe Adam Pearce says, if you beat this guy, or, pick somebody else, have a fatal 4-way or a triple threat to decide who's going to be the contender for the United States Championship. You could have threw Shelton Benjamin in there. Instead of having him excommunicated from the Hurt Business, you could have had him put into the United States Championship picture. Have him try to redeem himself by bringing some more gold into the stable. Same could be said for a guy like Cedric. Or for a guy like Mustafa Ali. Or a guy like Ricochet. But they wanted to use them as jobbers in the main event segment of the night, only to put over Drew McIntyre instead. None of this made any sense. The match itself, like I said, Sheamus has been putting on some bangers as of late. Sheamus and Riddle had some good chemistry, and it was interesting. It was an interesting match, but it went almost about 15 minutes, I would say. I don't want to say we all, some of you guys probably didn't think it was going to happen, but I assumed that this was the move they were going to make, as Sheamus defeats United States Champion Matt Riddle to earn himself a match at WrestleMania, which was not a stipulation of the match going in. But, just because you pin the champ, you get a title shot. That's the easiest way to do it. So let's do it the easy, lazy way. Then things got really hard on me. Really hard on me because we had Shane McMahon sweating his way down to ringside, flanked by Elias and Jackson Riker still for some reason. And he says he's got some information on Braun Strowman. He's going to dish the dirt on WWE's resident big man. Okay. And Shane McMahon wants to come out and show us Braun Strowman's 5th grade report card. Obviously, this was not the man's 5th grade report card. This is something some asshole in the back thought would be funny. I don't know. This seems like it's right out of the mind of Vince McMahon, if you ask me. Let's show her his report card where he was a dumb kid because, we want Braun to be dumb. And Shane with the Braun. Braun had his fucking 5th grade report card shown on Monday Night Raw. It had all D's. He got a D+ in gym class. Now look, if you wanted to be accurate here, you could have had all of the academic subjects with D's and F's, but at the very least, you could have gave the guy a B+ in gym. Because big guys like that, especially when you're younger, you excel in athletics and gym, and most of the time. The guy got a D+ in gym class. Great. He got a D in English, which should be an F, because the guy's a terrible promo and he can't even speak. It's just friggin' awful. Apparently, he received a D- in both social studies and mathematics. Okay. So, then they put up a picture of Braun Strowman wearing a dunce cap and the equation 2 + 2 = 5 on a chalkboard, and my skin was just like eating at itself. My soul, my little inner wrestling soul, was trying to escape, and I felt it coming up through my neck and just trying to sneak out, but I'm like, no, you have to stay in there, otherwise I'm just going to be a husk, and I'm not even going to know what I'm watching. So I restrained my wrestling soul, and I got through all of this, to be rewarded with a match between Braun Strowman and Jackson Riker. Obviously, Braun Strowman got all pissed off. He came out to confront them, and then they went to commercial, which, if you think about it, means Braun Strowman was standing there for a solid 5 minutes, because we are live, with Shane McMahon in his sights and doing absolutely nothing about it. If you think about it, it makes less and less sense now, doesn't it? So Braun defeated Jackson Riker in pretty much a squash match. And the thing you need to remember the most is that the WWE kept in the fucking train noises. And Braun does this, and you hear a woo woo, like that scene from The Waterboy where the guy's like, "You sound like a big choo-choo train." And he goes woo woo, and then he chugga 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 chugga, and then explodes Jackson Riker around it. Whose idea was this? Just because you have to overproduce the show because you can't go from arena to arena and you can actually edit things because you're on a time delay. Like, you don't need to go all out. Like, there's just no need for that. He's not a fucking human train. He does, it makes it ridiculous. And you can't say, well, it's supposed to be for kids. They're branding Braun Strowman for kids, so they want to make him a big, appealing to kids by being a huge train. Kids should be asleep by the time Braun Strowman got to this screen. All right, most kids ain't watching the show, and if you have any kids that are watching the show, they're definitely not interested because this shit is boring as hell. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. At the end of this match, Shane McMahon, of course, ran off so that Braun couldn't get him. He ran up to the stage. And then Braun took a mic and tried to say, but he was way out of breath and he was huffing and puffing, but he got it out there and he said, Shane, you made the mistake of saying it would be any match I wanted. So he picked a steel cage match. Big deal. Big deal. If you really wanted to end this, you really wanted to finish Shane McMahon, why not go all out and call for the Hell in a Cell? go Extreme Rules. Falls count anywhere. Last man standing. But no, you go with a typical cage match? Like that's going to keep anybody out? It's absolutely ridiculous. If I didn't want to see it before. They didn't do anything to make me want to see it. So I actually want to see it less and less. Just from the build or lack thereof for this match that they're putting on there. Then in what was probably the worst segment that I've had to sit through of this year. Hands down. And I completely forgot about this. I erased it from my memory banks from last Monday. I forgot that The Miz and John Morrison were going to have their hey hop fucking video on this show. And I want to be honest with you guys. I loved it. No! I'm kidding. I just wanted to see if you were paying attention. I didn't watch it. I got up from my couch and I came into this room and I got away from the television. I was able to hear just enough of it to know when it was going to be over. But I didn't watch it. I didn't want to hear it because I value my sanity. And it's not worth it. Because at the end of the day, this whole thing was started off as a plan to build up and get over Damian Priest, who is now just a background player because apparently Bad Bunny's doing great things at the Performance Center. I hear this all the time. Oh, Bad Bunny's doing great things at the Performance Center. They must have high hopes for him. They must have a lot of faith in him to pull off a match when they're putting him in there against the softest guy in pro wrestling. All right. I need you all to stop it right now. Because this guy shows up tonight on Monday Night Raw and he hits The Miz with a rabbit punch that didn't look all that impressive to me. And if you can't throw a fucking punch that looks good, what could be so impressive? The guy's good. What's he going to do? Some sort of a flippy move off the top rope? I don't care. I don't care. And you know what? To be fair, WrestleMania and celebrity involvement go hand in hand. There were celebrities at WrestleMania 3. We had, it started off with the legendary Ray Charles, and it went all the way through. I think Little Richard was there. We had ridiculous celebrities in every single WrestleMania. But the difference is, up until recent years, they weren't always, like, involved in the match. Like, I know the first WrestleMania had Mr. T in the main event, and then we had, you know, Mr. T versus Piper. We've seen Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam Bigelow, Snooki and Trish Stratus, and all these other fucking celebrity matches. We had Gronk last year. And I don't mind the celebrity involvement when it comes to the show. But I don't want celebrities wrestling. I don't want it. It doesn't... First of all, the problem is not that celebrities are wrestling. The real problem here is that celebrities nowadays are not actually celebrities. Like back in the 90s, and like celebrities were celebrities. Now celebrity could be some jerk-off like Logan Paul, who appeals to 10-year-olds on YouTube, has 50,000 million followers and views, and the WWE thinks that's more valuable than being an actual celebrity with, you know, influence and, you know, somebody that contributes positively to the world. So maybe it's not that it's involving celebrities, but the caliber of celebrities that they are involving just doesn't appeal to me. But talking about not appealing to me, goddamn, I want The Miz to retire. You know what? I don't mind The Miz outside of the WWE, but his run for me should be way done. Way done. The only thing The Miz has done this year, besides being this guy was a WWE champion just a couple of weeks ago. Now he's showing up on Raw dressed like a fucking rabbit. Okay, this guy just needs to go away. Go away. He's clearly, simply, that was the two words together, Klimply. He's Klimply, just WWE's bitch. And he'll do whatever the fuck they tell him because he's an attention-starved, crazy person who doesn't care how he looks as long as he's getting paid. And I respect The Miz's hustle. He makes a lot of money, and he shouldn't even be in the position he's in at all. And he, I guess, earned his place. But now his place is taking up too much space on a Monday Night Raw that just melts your brain in half. And he's one of the main causes of it. And maybe if they didn't do so much of this shit with The Miz over the last couple of months, I wouldn't care so much. But I am totally out. Completely disinterested in Bad Bunny and The Miz and Morrison and, unfortunately, by default, Damian Priest. Bobby Lashley pretty easily defeated Shelton Benjamin in a match that was ridiculous. Didn't need to happen. Only further cemented the fact that the Hurt business is done. Shelton Benjamin taps out to the Hurt Lock. Then, like I said, it's like it just kept getting worse. And then it became game night. The New Day wants to have fucking game night with AJ Styles and Omos. This is how they choose to build the tag team title match at WrestleMania. Instead of doing something interesting, they're doing ridiculous New Day comedy, which is not my favorite thing about the New Day. I like how the New Day wrestles. I think they've been a great team for a long time. But it's segments like this that they have many of that just make me feel like, you know what? I don't need the New Day anymore. The New Day didn't need to be tag team champions for them to come on Monday Night Raw and play fucking charades and Pictionary with AJ Styles and his new giant big man friend. It just did nothing for me. It wasn't funny. It was, in fact, ridiculous. Omos himself didn't even want to play. AJ and Omos lose, obviously. AJ throws a little bitch fit and acts like a child. Xavier Woods calls him out on this. And all of this led into a match between Xavier Woods and AJ Styles, which I told you last week was going to happen when we seen AJ versus Kofi. I told you next week we're going to see AJ versus Woods. I didn't know we were going to see a ridiculous fucking game night that went on seemingly forever and made Omos look ridiculous, which is the theme word of the night, is ridiculous. Because AJ Styles clearly drew a sun on the board for Pictionary. It was clear as day. But he couldn't guess the word sun. Now, I know that they were maybe trying to play into the fact that he was not there for games and he didn't want to play games. But maybe, you should have leaned more heavily into that. I don't understand what the point of any of that was. It was absolutely fucking useless. And then you have Xavier Woods defeating AJ Styles by disqualification because as we inch closer and closer to WrestleMania, they're trying to get you interested in Omos the Giant. So he interfered in the match. He got his guy AJ disqualified. The New Day gets the win. With one more week before WrestleMania, what kind of nonsense can they do with this angle? I'm afraid to even ask. We now enter hour number 3, where it continues to get worse and worse. We get an Alexa's Playground segment where she's just sitting in her little swing. She's cranking a jack-in-the-box. I wish she was cranking my jack-in-the-box. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? No, never mind that. But, she does her typical, Randy Orton wants to play with fire. He shouldn't play with fire. He's going to get burned type promo. He wants the Fiend, but he shouldn't want the Fiend, blah, blah, blah. She called this jack-in-the-box a devil in the box or a fiend in the box. Ha ha ha, so funny. She said Orton doesn't know what's coming next, and Alexa then says at WrestleMania the Legend Killer dies. She starts giggling like a madwoman, cranking her little thing until pops up a tiny little fiend guy out of the box, and then they zoom back to show the extra crispy, toasty Fiend sitting in the swing next to her, not moving a muscle in his body. I'm convinced that he wasn't even in the costume. They just propped up the mannequin in there. He was that still. It didn't even look like a human body. It looked like a prop, but I'm sure it was in fact Bray Wyatt, looking as ridiculous as ever with this new persona and the burnt up, extra crispy, deep fried Fiend. And I didn't care for it. And the only thing I can hope for is that this actually comes to an end at WrestleMania and maybe the Fiend transitions into something else. Maybe Randy Orton. will defeat the Fiend and he'll go away forever and come back as just Bray Wyatt, because that character to me is dead. And once again, they squandered all the potential that was there when they put Bliss with Bray, and now it's just become stupid, nonsensical, repetitive, ridiculous. Drew McIntyre busts into the locker room like I went off on earlier. He was going off on everybody and anybody. I see you tweeting on your phone. Don't be tweeting. You should be fighting, not tweeting. Confronting everybody that was back there. Nobody was back there was even worth 25 cents. Right? So eventually, after he's shooting on everybody, telling everybody that nobody's got the balls to stand up, I dare you to stand up, take a shot, step up, step up. He kept screaming to everybody, even Braun Strowman, which I talked about earlier. He got into Matt Riddle's face, and all of a sudden, Angel Garza was the only one, although I didn't know it was Angel Garza at the time. I had to go back and see who the fuck it was. Angel Garza attacked him from behind. McIntyre tossed him away, and then the guy just gave up. Like he didn't come back for more. Drew Gulak gave a quick thought about hitting Drew McIntyre, but then Drew McIntyre headbutted him and beat him to the punch. Then he got in Ricochet's face, and Ricochet told McIntyre that he doesn't trust Bobby Lashley, but if it's a fight you're looking for, he doesn't have to look any further. Ricochet is the one that finally steps up after being confronted by Drew McIntyre. He didn't have the balls to do it. Nobody had the balls to do it over the first 2 hours of the show. Fucking stupid. And he didn't seem to be that confident, really. Ricochet looked like he was scared to be going in there and to be accepting this challenge, but we all knew it was all going to be for nothing anyway. Nobody's beating Drew McIntyre, especially when they turned a bounty hunting segment into an actual match. You know for sure Drew McIntyre's coming out on top. We all came out on the bottom when it comes to Naomi taking on Shayna Basler. Now, this I thought was going to be the match that set up whatever was going to be happening for these two at WrestleMania, but instead, although it does kind of tease the inevitable plan, which would probably be a triple threat women's tag match, you got Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke who are out there on commentary. MVP was also out there on commentary, filling in for Samoa Joe all night. And they were sitting there to watch this match. You knew they were going to have some sort of involvement. Naomi and Lana, they want their shots at the championships again, even though they lost for them, I think, twice now. They want to keep going for more. They all want to be on WrestleMania too, I guess. But this match was not even 3 minutes long. Naomi defeats and pins the tag team champion, Shayna Basler, second champion to lose on this night. And does this set up anything for them at WrestleMania? We don't know. Perhaps. But the reason why we don't really know is because Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler were put into a match next week to face Asuka and Rhea Ripley. So how can we do two things at once? Showing you even more how unnecessary the whole involvement of Asuka in the women's tag team division is. Absolute ridiculousness. There was one point in this match for Naomi where I think it was Dana Brooke went and scooped up Lana for some reason and put her on the apron. This caused the distraction for Shayna Baszler, and Naomi beat her with the most devastating move in all of pro wrestling, the Flash Pinfall Roll-Up. Just a complete waste of time. As was the Asuka Rhea Ripley contract signing. This was totally dumb. And immediately following their loss to Naomi, Shayna and Nia come out to confront Rhea Ripley. As we talked about a little bit earlier, I won't go too much in depth here, but they challenged them to this tag match. Ripley accepted on behalf of Asuka, who was still laying dead on the floor because Rhea Ripley turned the table on top of Asuka. Just really cringeworthy stuff. Totally ridiculous. This also came after Matt Riddle's big botch on the mic. It was very, you can call it weird, but it definitely wasn't scripted. They were trying to do a comedy skit. Riddle flubbed his lines and walked off. That's the bottom line. Not because Stone Cold said so, but because it's actually happening. They announced more for the Hall of Fame tonight. They talked about Kane being announced for the Hall of Fame, which I told you guys on Friday I don't really have a problem with. The Great Khali going into the Hall of Fame is a fucking joke. It's an absolute disgrace that they would even put him in the Hall of Fame. Yes, I know he's been a former world champion, but he couldn't wrestle his way out of a paper bag. He's garbage. He's done nothing of real note. His biggest contribution to the WWE is being a gigantic clown, dancing around, kissing Natalya, and kissing strange women in the crowd. Nobody remembers him as a devastating champion. They only remember him as a gigantic failure of an experiment because Vince loves his big men and needs to get off somehow. And he's being put into the Hall of Fame due to WWE wanting to, I guess, keep their relationships well in the Middle East. Otherwise, I don't get it. I do get Molly Holly's induction. I do understand Eric Bischoff's induction, even though I think his is more to keep him away from AEW than anything else. And tonight we add another name to the list, Rob Van Dam. Going into the Hall of Fame, absolutely deserved. I have no problem with him going into the Hall of Fame. The only problem I have, not with RVD or his induction, is I don't understand how this is going to affect him going forward. Last time I checked, he was a full-time member of another company's roster. But I guess WWE just gets what they want, right? So they throw enough money at RVD. You could bet your bottom dollar there's a run for RVD after this Hall of Fame induction sometime this year in the WWE. Or at the very least, he's going to be put on TV in some capacity. Because again, much like I said with Eric Bischoff and AEW, I think they just want to make sure RVD don't end up going there as well. So I don't know. It seems politically motivated, but there's nothing wrong with RVD being put in the Hall of Fame. I'm absolutely fine with that. We get to the end of the show. Drew McIntyre defeats Ricochet in less than 3 minutes, making him look like the jobber we've come to know and despise. I love Ricochet as a performer. Ricochet 3-4 years ago challenging Drew McIntyre would have totally had me excited. I would have been just over the moon thinking this is going to be one of the best matches of all time. Ricochet now in 2021 on the main roster of the WWE, losing in 3 minutes. That's just the way it is. It's the way it's always been. He would also go on to defeat Mustafa Ali, who waited for the whole show for this opportunity to jump in and attack Drew McIntyre after he's already had a match, which is something it seems like Ali would do, being the heel character that he is. Ali didn't have any of his Retribution gear on. They had no follow-up story to the breakup of Retribution. Nobody else was on the show or has been repackaged or has been talked about at all. It's as if it never even happened, which is fine because I don't want to remember Retribution. It was garbage. It was one of the worst things of the year. But, I mean, show the fans a little bit of respect. At least mention something. As far as I know, I didn't hear them say anything about Retribution or what was happening or what happened last week. It was just Mustafa Ali is here. He's trying to take advantage of Bobby Lashley's offer, and he fails as well as he headbutted him, hit him with a Claymore kick, gets the pinfall. McIntyre then grabs the microphone and continues to challenge everybody else. It's like, who else wants to step up? Who else is there? Who wants to step up? And after a while, Lashley came out, went to commercial break. They came back. Once again, you got to understand that for 5 minutes, this segment started at 10:50. And then they went immediately to commercial. They came back at 10:55, which means for 5 whole minutes, Lashley and Drew McIntyre were standing there and did absolutely nothing. You got to think about things like that because it definitely hurts the flow of the show. You should have at least came back to them in the middle of a brawl. You telling me these both stand there, patiently waited for their cues? They're supposed to be intensely hating each other and wanting to collide. It's just one of those things that pisses me off. I don't know. Like pinning your champions. or nonsensical can they coexist angles, all of which will be found on this one very episode. And then they started to brawl, and Baron Corbin came out. And now I really don't get this. It doesn't make sense. I know. See, it's so devastating to me that I almost dropped my hammer. I know that years ago, and I remember Lashley and Drew and Baron Corbin were this trio. I don't remember what they called themselves. I don't want to remember what they called themselves. But if this is supposed to play into that, it still doesn't make sense because it came out of nowhere. Baron Corbin is on the other fucking show. And as last time I checked, WrestleMania wasn't the one time a year where Raw and SmackDown superstars collide, so what is with this? Is Baron Corbin moved over to Monday Night Raw for some reason without anybody telling us Baron Corbin's been traded to Raw? Is that going to be what's coming out tomorrow morning in the news? Because he was seemingly just abandoned. He was in the middle of some weird heel versus heel feud with Sami Zayn on SmackDown. Then Kevin Owens comes into the picture, and now Baron Corbin just fucking vanished. But now he's reappeared on Monday Night Raw, wreaking havoc on this show, making it suck even worse than it usually does in a main event segment. And here's where it makes even less sense. Because being that Baron Corbin helped out Bobby Lashley and seemingly took out the champ with him, does Baron Corbin get the championship match? Or is there some sort of other pre-existing deal that we are unaware of? Because based on what the WWE said and the story that they are telling, Baron Corbin now, that he has assisted Bobby Lashley in taking out Drew McIntyre, who was put into the Hurt Lock 3 times and was left unconscious by the end of the show, that would leave Corbin as the next in line, or the promised superstar to take Drew McIntyre's place. Which we all know is not going to happen. So next week on Raw, nothing has been announced because they probably don't know what the fuck they're going to do. But don't be surprised if we end up getting a one-on-one between Drew and Baron to settle that. But it's absolute. It explodes my brain, man. This is just craziness. It seems random. It feels as unplanned as it probably is. They're just throwing stuff out there, hoping it makes sense. Almost all night long, I was listening to people talk. Well, there was a few wrestling matches on this show. They pretty much all were very quick. And this 3-hour shit fest of a comedy show was majority just people talking and talking and talking. And the fucking report card segment and the dirt sheet, which led into the video, which went back to the dirt sheet so there could be more talking. And then there was a promo by Randy Orton, which was lost in the mix that I don't even remember what he said because it's just more of the same shit. And then we had the game night and Alexa's Playground and all of this blah, 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 blah. Drew in the locker room, all talk, very little action, nothing at all exciting, nothing at all worth watching, and nothing to make you feel like WrestleMania is anywhere even close. Feels like just another day in the shit hellhole office that is Monday Night Raw, where they build absolutely nothing and destroy everything. On that note, I want to give my heartfelt well wishes and positive prayers and thoughts thrown at the way of one Road Dogg Jesse James, who it was reported that he was hospitalized yesterday, seemingly having a heart attack. I don't know if that's factual or not. That has not been confirmed as of this recording, but he definitely was faced with some sort of serious health issue and was rushed to the hospital. I believe it was yesterday, so I hope you're doing okay, dog. Thoughts and prayers go out to you, brother. Get well soon. We hope to see you back someday doing what you love to do. Seeing you back on Twitter again would be great. I just hope you stay healthy and stay with us and get better very quickly. And that's it, man. That's all. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it. This is one of the longest shows we've done in a while because I just keep rambling about how fucking bad this show was. Absolutely terrible. And with that in mind, we still got one more episode of Raw to get through. Before that, we got SmackDown this Friday. I hope you guys come back here to Sledgehammer TV as we bring the hammer down on SmackDown, which I guess might be slightly better now that Baron Corbin's gone? Nah, they still got Seth Rollins. I don't know. Reginald apparently has been shopping where Seth Rollins gets his suits. Matt Riddle's turned into a millennial Ricochet. Braun Strowman is WWE's version of Thomas the Tank Engine. And The Miz is walking around as a fucking rabbit. What is happening? What is happening? That's it, you guys. Thank you all so very much for joining me. My name is Nick Nightmare. This is the team Thor the Sledgehammer, the official Sledgehammer of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, his tag team partner, the World Heavyweight Champion of all the microphones in all the world, Mr. Blue the Snowball, the most important member of this team, as always, each and every one of you Sledgeheads in Sledge Nation. And if you are not already a subscriber to this channel, now would be the time to do so. You just listen to me scream and rant and rave for 51 minutes, which means not only are you awesome, but you are Sledgehammer TV material. Hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss another hammering of the WWE as we are on the bumpiest road to WrestleMania there has ever been. And then share this video with anybody you think would enjoy what we do here along with us. Anybody you know that might want to subscribe as well after you hit it, make sure they hit it. And then most importantly, if you really want to show your support to this channel, you could buy merchandise, which will be linked in the comment section, in the description down below. But even more importantly than that, because I know some of you guys are strapped for cash right now, hit that like button. That like button does more for me than dollar signs right now because we want exposure. We want to keep growing. We want to get past that 3,000 subscriber mark. Hopefully by before WrestleMania would be great. So let's get that going. Make sure you guys as Sledgeheads push other people to come on and join the fun with us because nobody brings the hammer down on the WWE like we do. And I can't do it without you, and it's your support that keeps me coming back here and that keeps me forcing myself to watch some of the worst television ever produced, which on the 34th anniversary of WrestleMania 34, WrestleMania 3, 34th anniversary of WrestleMania 3 is just depressing because they just don't make them like they used to. That's gonna do it. We are out of here. We will see you next time right here on your new favorite wrestling show, the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, only on Sledgehammer TV, right here on YouTube.com. Thanks, Vince.
That guy Vince, he's crazy.
Thanks, Vince. Oh.